Hey everyone, Dan McKenzie here with the McKenzie Law Firm. We are an estate planning, estate administration, and small business counsel law firm in the Denver, Colorado area. And notice we get a lot of questions about one particular part of planning, which is who should be the person who carries out my plan. And that person goes by different names depending on the type of plan, and sometimes they have just different terminology in different states, so people have different words that they use for it. But in a trust-based plan, it's the trustee. In a will-based plan, it's the personal representative. These are variations of what are sometimes called the executor. And in a lot of plans, people pick a family member to do this job, and if the person making the plan has adult kids, usually it's one of the adult kids who does this. We frequently encourage people to consider using a professional to do this, and wanted to explain why in this video. And tell you, it's not a service that we actually offer, so we're usually outsourcing to someone else and don't make any money on this advice. So I hope it gives us some extra credibility on something that we just think is something important for people to consider. And honestly, most people, we tell this advice to, and they still pick family members, but it makes sense actually, because family members, they know you. They know your family, they know what you want. It's a little bit easier probably to instruct them and trust that they're going to know what you wanted and be able to do what you wanted to do. But there are some real issues involved in having family members, especially kids, that come up. And so that's why we tell people to consider it. So first thing to understand about estate planning is in every estate plan, there's really three people involved, okay? So person number one is the person who is making the plan. And so, in a will, that's the person drafting the will, of course. In the trust, that's what sometimes called the trustor, the grantor, the settlor. I call it the trust maker because I think that's clear to people who don't read about this stuff every day. That is the person who has the assets, maybe has some liabilities, has some thoughts about how those things should be settled, who should get what their priorities are, whether there's any restrictions on assets going to various people, are we taking care of charities, like all those opinions get written down in some sort of document like a trust agreement or a will. And so person number one is the plan maker. Put that here. And then person number two is the person who's actually going to carry out the plan, and that's the people I was just discussing. So we got the plan implementer. They're the person. This is the person who's going to take that document, find those instructions, and follow them. So so we'll put plan implementer. And again, this in a trust, this is your trustee. In a will, this is your personal representative. And again, these jobs, sometimes lumped under the category of executor, the person who is executing the instructions that they get. And their job is not just to execute the instructions, but also to do everything they can, the best that they can, for the last people involved in any plan, which is the plan beneficiaries. So that's the people entitled to receive the assets through this plan. And so this is who we're talking about today. And I'll tell you, I tell all my clients, like, picking that person really is your most important choice. Because even when you have a plan, even if you have a will or a trust, a lot of times there is room within the instructions. Even when you're pretty specific about things, there's going to be decisions that have to be made. So a very, obviously, probably the most common plan is, I'm leaving everything equally to my kids. Well, within equal distributions, a lot of decisions to make as far as, how are we doing that? Like if we have the ideal situation is, okay, we have a house that's worth maybe $400,000 of equity, and we have a bank account that has $400,000 in it, and we have two kids, and one kid wants the house and gets it, and the other kid wants the bank account and gets it. As you can imagine, that never happens, right? Different assets are worth different values. Some people really want that real estate, some people don't. Personal property, very difficult to divide up. Not everything, bank accounts, pretty easy to divide up into 2 shares or however many shares there needs to be. Other types of property, hard assets, really not. And so within that, the personal representative really needs to decide, okay, how are we getting from, this person up here owning everything to these people down here equally sharing in it. And so that's a big job. And so, another thing to understand about this is that the same person can be in multiple positions. And in fact, like in a living trust, if you set up a trust right now and you're putting your stuff in it, typically you're all three of these people, right? I'm always trying to explain to people like, yes, you are selling your house to yourself, but you're selling your house to yourself as trustee. You're not, you don't own you don't own your house as yourself anymore. Now you own it as your trustee. But you're the one also the beneficiary of the trust. You're the one who made the trust. You provided all the instructions. So you're really still in full control, but on paper, no, you don't own your house anymore. So so you can have different people in these positions or the same person. And so, as I said, the very common situation is where people have adult kids. They'll put one kid in here, and then that kid is also down here in this category with their siblings. And so, as you can see, that's an inherent conflict, right? I mean, this person's making the decisions, as I just mentioned, like they might need to decide, multiple people want this furniture set that was grandma's, or multiple people want the ski cabin, or multiple people, again, they're just trying to decide on how to sell a house. Like, are we doing it quickly to, get money as soon as we can, or are we trying to get top dollar? Are we trying to, take our time with it, fix it up first, those kinds of things. So if one person is in this category and in this category, it's tricky. They got to really be beyond reproach. They really got to take their duty to put their siblings' interests ahead of their own very, very seriously, because that's a big deal. That's a fiduciary duty. It's the highest duty in the law, and so it's tough. It's tough even in the best of circumstances to just make sure that you're really being fully fair and not letting your own interests come ahead of your siblings. So one solution to this is to have an outside party do this. And the reason a lot of people don't do that is just because, they think, well, that person's going to charge for it. We could save some money. My beneficiaries won't want to deal with that outside party. We've had that situation where kids find out that there is a third-party beneficiary and they're not real happy that they're not the ones doing it, that someone else is. But I usually, again, point out all the benefits that I'm kind of building up to here, which is having an outside party, one person do this and not be in this category down here, just removes all those questions, removes all the doubts that many people have about whether this person is really doing what the plan tells them to do for the benefit of everybody equally. And then the other thing about it is that this is not just deciding who gets what. There are some real duties involved with this. Right? They gotta file a tax return usually. They at least have to determine whether one is due. They gotta gather the bills. They gotta figure out who's which bills to pay. They gotta close accounts. They gotta find the assets. They gotta keep them protected. A big part of this job, again, is protecting assets for these people. So if there is real estate, for example, or personal property, they really gotta lock it down, make sure it's insured, make sure it's not disappearing or people are taking it or whatever else. That if there's a house, that the lawn is being kept up to date, and healthy, that the pipes aren't freezing, like just a lot of duties. And so having someone who does this professionally and is aware of those duties and has already the connections in place is just like anything else. It can be a lot more efficient. And there are some real benefits to having a professional who does this all the time. And yes, they're going to get paid. But usually it's kind of a drop in the bucket for a lot of estates, frankly, even if it's, up to $10,000. By the time most people have their home equity cashed out in their 401ks or, whatever cash they have, I mean, usually that's kind of a small part of the estate, and it might be worth it if it, it definitely is worth it if it causes an estate to just run smoothly without court objections or anything looking like litigation, because once that happens, people will be dreaming about only spending $10,000. That gets very expensive very quickly. And so if this can prevent that from happening, it's really something to consider. So we strongly consider, considering a professional trustee. And if you Google professional trustee, you'll find them. A lot of financial institutions have trust departments. A lot of the banks, they frankly want a lot of assets under their control before they take them, like the Chase banks of the world, or whatever else. They've got very high asset limits before they'll actually take on being the trustee. There are some other financial institutions like Schwab or Fidelity or Edward Jones that have trust departments that they'll take them on too, and you can name them. Something to consider there is a lot of times they want a lot of language in the trust, authorizing them to do things and kind of limiting their liability and stuff like that in ways that sometimes we don't necessarily want. So you just got to look at that very closely. And then a lot of times, there are professionals around here, certainly in the Denver area, this is what they do. And so they're just professional fiduciaries. So they're CPAs, they're lawyers, and sometimes they're just trained to do this. They're not either of those things, but there are ways to get licensed to do this. So you should, like I say, we tell all our clients it's something to consider, especially if you don't have a family member who's really good for the tasks that there and can really be trusted by the other family members to do everything right and will have their respect and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in having this conversation further, we're happy to help. Like I say, this particular service, we draft the plans. We're not trying to put ourselves in the position to implement them. So we can give you a pretty objective analysis on that. If you want to have that conversation, our phone number is 303-578-2745. And again, we are the McKenzie Law Firm. And I hope this video is helpful. Thank you.